I still remember the sound of the rain pounding against the door, but the silence on the phone line was louder. My mother didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't ask about the shivering, 3-month-old baby sitting in a car seat on my wet porch. She just sighed, her voice cold and flat. She said 5 words that changed my life forever. "She is your burden now." Then, she hung up. That was the night I stopped waiting for my family to love me. I was 24 years old, terrified, and completely alone. But as I looked down at my niece, Lily, I knew I had to be strong. I locked the door and promised her I wouldn't leave. 10 years have passed since that night. Today, those same parents are sitting across from me in a courtroom. They are wearing their best clothes. They are holding hands. They are looking at the judge with fake tears in their eyes, accusing me of keeping their granddaughter away from them. They think I am still the weak, obedient daughter who took the mess they left behind. But they are wrong. They don't know what I am holding in my lap. They don't know that the sealed folder under my hand holds the truth that will destroy every lie they have told. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me, where in the world are you watching from? The storm that night wasn't just rain. It was a deluge. It felt like the sky was trying to wash the whole world away. I stood in the doorway of my small apartment, shivering in my thin sweater, staring down at the porch. The porch light flickered, casting a sickly yellow glow on the wet concrete. There, sitting right in the center of the welcome mat, was a car seat. A plastic bag was tucked into the side. A damp pink blanket covered the front. My heart hammered against my ribs. I looked out into the darkness of the driveway. I saw taillights fading around the corner. I knew those taillights. They belonged to my sister's beat-up sedan. "Elena!" I screamed into the rain. "Elena, come back." The wind just threw my voice back at me. She was gone. I looked down at the car seat again. The baby inside made a small, whimpering sound. I didn't want to touch it. I was terrified that if I touched the handle, it would make it real. If I brought the car seat inside, I was accepting something I wasn't ready for. But the wind blew a spray of icy rain onto the blanket, and the baby let out a sharp cry. Instinct took over. I grabbed the handle, it was heavy, and hauled the seat inside. I slammed the door and locked it, leaning my back against the wood, breathing hard. The apartment was quiet. My boyfriend, Ross, was working the late shift at the warehouse. It was just me and this plastic carrier sitting on my rug. I peeled back the blanket. Lily looked up at me. She was tiny, her face red, and scrunching up to cry. She had Elena's eyes, wide and dark. Tucked into the straps of the car seat was a piece of notebook paper. The edges were wet. I unfolded it. The handwriting was jagged, hurried. "Take care of her." That was it. "No, I'm sorry." "No, I'll be back in a week." "No, here is some money for diapers." Just a command. "Take care of her." I felt sick. My stomach turned over. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed my phone. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hit the contact for Mom. It rang 3 times. "Hello." My mother's voice was crisp. She was probably sitting in her recliner, watching her favorite game show. "Mom, she's gone." I choked out. "Elena, she was here. She dropped the baby off on my porch and she drove away." I waited for the gasp. I waited for the outrage. I waited for her to say, "I'm getting your father. We're coming over right now." Instead, I heard a heavy sigh. It was the sound of someone who was annoyed, not worried. "Well," my mother said. I suppose she finally snapped. "Mom, there is a baby in my living room. A 3-month-old baby. I don't have diapers. I don't have formula. I don't know what to do." "Calm down, Harper," she said. Her voice was cold. It was the voice she used when I got AB on a report card instead of an A. "You're a nurse, aren't you? You handle babies all day." "That's my job," I yelled. "I clock out. I come home. I can't keep her here." "We certainly can't take her," my mother said quickly. "Your father and I are retired. We've done our time raising children. And frankly, we're done dealing with Elena's drama. We washed our hands of it last month when she stole money from your father's wallet. So, what am I supposed to do?" I asked, tears finally spilling over. "Put her in foster care? Call the police?" There was a pause. Then my mother delivered the line that would haunt me for the next decade. "She's your burden now, Harper. You've always been the responsible one. You figure it out. Handle it." The line went dead. I stared at the phone. The betrayal hit me harder than the abandonment. Elena was an addict and a mess. I expected chaos from her. But my parents? The People who were supposed to be the safety net, they had just cut the rope. I sank to the floor next to the car seat. Lily started to wail. It was a hungry cry, thin and desperate. I had to move. I had to do something. I drove to the 24-hour pharmacy at midnight. I bought diapers, bottles, and a can of formula that cost $25. I swiped my credit card, wincing at the total. I only had $300 in my checking account until payday. When I got home, I made a bottle. I sat on the couch and fed her. She drank greedily, her tiny hand gripping my thumb. I looked at the door, waiting for Ross. He came home at 2 a.m. He smelled like cardboard and sweat. He walked in, saw the baby on the couch, and stopped dead. "What is that?" he asked. "It's Lily," I said softly. Elena dropped her off. For the night, I looked at him. I couldn't lie. "I don't know, Ross." She left a note. She took off. Ross rubbed his face with his hands.
"No.
"No way, Harper.
We talked about this.
We are saving up to move to the city. We are 24. We aren't parents." "I know," I said, "but she's my niece. My parents won't help. I can't just put her on the street. Give her to the state," he said. "I can't do that," I whispered. The next 2 weeks were a blur of tension. The apartment felt smaller. Lily cried at night. Ross slept on the couch with a pillow over his head. We stopped talking. We stopped eating dinner together. The air was thick with resentment. Every time Lily cried, Ross would sigh loudly. Every time I had to buy diapers, he would glare at the receipt. "It's been 10 days, Harper," he said one morning while drinking coffee. "When is she coming back?"
"I don't know," I said.
I was exhausted. My eyes were burning. "You need to find out, because I didn't sign up for this."
He was right.
He hadn't signed up for it, but neither had I. The difference was he had a choice. I felt like I didn't. I looked at Lily sleeping in the makeshift crib I'd made from a laundry basket and blankets. She was innocent. She didn't ask to be born to a mother who ran away or grandparents who didn't care. 2 days later, I came home from a shift at the hospital. My babysitter, a teenager from downstairs, I paid $20 to watch Lily for 4 hours, met me at the door. "She was good," the girl said, taking the cash. I walked inside. The apartment felt different. It was too quiet. I walked into the bedroom. The closet door was open. Ross's side was empty. His shirts were gone. His shoes were gone. I went to the bathroom. His toothbrush was gone. On the kitchen counter, there was a key.
His key.
And a $20 bill. I picked up the bill. It felt like an insult. He had left me. He had walked out because I chose to protect a baby that wasn't mine. I sat down at the kitchen table. The silence was deafening. I was 24 years old. I had a nursing degree, a mountain of student debt, a rent payment I couldn't afford alone, and a baby. My parents had abandoned me. My sister had abandoned me. My boyfriend had abandoned me. I looked at the phone. I could call my mom again. I could beg. I could threaten to drive over there and leave Lily on their porch. But I remembered her voice. "She's your burden now." Anger flared in my chest. It was a hot, white heat. "Fine," I said to the empty room. "Fine." I walked over to the laundry basket. Lily was awake. She was kicking her legs, staring up at the ceiling fan. I picked her up. She was heavy and warm. She smelled like milk and baby powder. "It's just us, Lily," I told her. My voice cracked, but I forced myself to keep speaking. "Everyone else left, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." I held her tight against my chest. I cried then. I cried for the life I had planned, the trips I wanted to take, the late nights out with friends, the freedom. I grieved it all right there, in that dark living room. But as I cried, I felt her heart beating against mine. It was steady. It was real. The rain started again outside, tapping against the window. But this time, the door was locked. We were inside. And I knew, with a terrifying clarity, that I was the only thing standing between this child and the void. I wiped my face. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I wasn't a girlfriend. I was a guardian, and I had work to do. Those first 3 months nearly broke me. I look back on them now, and I honestly don't know how I survived. It was like moving through a thick, gray fog. I was working shifts as a pediatric nurse at the hospital. You would think that would make it easier. You would think, oh, Harper knows what she's doing. She's a professional. But it is entirely different when you are the nurse, the doctor, and the mother all at once with zero break. At work, I could hand a crying baby back to its mother. At work, I had a team. At home, there was only me. My schedule was brutal. I worked 3 12-hour shifts a week. I had to hire a cheap daycare center because I couldn't afford the nice one. Every morning, I had to pack the diaper bag, bundle Lily up, drive her to the center, drive to work, stand on my feet for 12 hours saving other people's children, drive back, pick her up, and then start the second shift at home. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. I averaged about 4 hours a night. My eyes had permanent dark circles. My skin was pale and breaking out. I lost weight because I often forgot to eat dinner, or I just ate the leftover scraps of whatever was in the fridge: stale toast, cold cereal, an apple. The apartment was a disaster. Laundry piled up on the couch because I didn't have the energy to fold it. There were bottles drying on every surface in the kitchen. The floor was always sticky. I felt like I was drowning, and I was angry. I was so angry. I remember one Tuesday specifically. It was raining again. It seemed like it always rained when things got bad. I had just gotten home. Lily had been screaming in the car for 20 minutes. She had colic. It usually started at 6 p.m. and lasted until midnight. It was a piercing, high-pitched scream that drilled right into my brain. I carried her inside, juggling the car seat and 2 bags of groceries. One of the bags ripped. A jar of spaghetti sauce shattered on the floor. Red sauce splattered everywhere, on my white nursing scrubs, on the cabinets, on the rug. Lily screamed louder. I dropped the car seat on the floor, gently but with force. I stood there, staring at the red mess. It looked like a crime scene. I sank to my knees. I didn't clean it up. I just put my head in my hands and screamed. I screamed until my throat hurt. I can't do this. I yelled. I hate this. I hate you, Elena. I hate you, Mom. I looked at Lily. She was red-faced, her little fists clenched, screaming back at me. For a split second, a terrible, shameful second, I thought about packing a bag and leaving, just walking out the door. Let my parents deal with it.
Let the state deal with it.
Why did I have to be the martyr? I was 24. I was supposed to be going to concerts. I was supposed to be dating. I grabbed a roll of paper towels and started scrubbing the sauce, sobbing the whole time. The glass cut my finger. Blood mixed with the sauce. I wrapped my finger in a paper towel and went to Lily. I picked her up. I sat on the cheap armchair Ross and I had bought at a thrift store. I started to bounce her. "Shh," I said.
"Shh."
"Please stop. Please, Lily. Please." I pulled out my phone. I opened the YouTube app. My search history was pathetic. How to soothe colic baby, how to get baby to sleep through night, single mom budget tips, cheap diaper brands. I played a video of white noise for babies. It sounded like a vacuum cleaner. I turned the volume up. I bounced her for 2 hours. My arms ached. My back was on fire. Finally, around 9 p.m., she stopped. Her body went limp against my shoulder. Her breathing evened out. I didn't move. I was afraid to put her down. If I put her down, she might wake up and I couldn't handle another round. I looked down at her. She was asleep. Her eyelashes were long and wet with tears. Her mouth was slightly open. She looked so peaceful. I moved my hand to brush a stray hair off her forehead. As I pulled my hand away, her hand shot out. It was a reflex, I knew that, but her tiny fingers wrapped around my index finger.
She squeezed.
It was a strong grip for such a small thing. I froze. I stared at her hands. My hand was rough, dry from washing it 100 times a day at the hospital, cut from the glass jar. Her hand was perfect, soft, brand new. She held on to me like I was the only solid thing in the universe. And in that moment, the anger drained out of me. It just vanished. I looked at her face, and I didn't see a burden anymore. I didn't see my sister's mistake. I didn't see my lost youth. I saw a person
who needed me.
I wasn't just keeping her alive. I was her world. To my parents, she was a nuisance. To Elena, she was an obstacle. But to Lily, I was everything. I was food, I was warmth, I was safety. I leaned my head back against the chair and closed my eyes. Tears leaked out, but they weren't angry tears anymore. They were tears of surrender. "Okay," I whispered into the quiet room. "Okay, Lily, I've got you." Something shifted in my heart that night. The obligation died, and love took its place. It wasn't the fairy tale love you see in movies. It was a gritty, fierce, protective love. It was a love that said, "I will suffer so you don't have to." From that day on, I stopped surviving for myself. I started living for her. I stopped waiting for Elena to come back. I packed up Elena's old stuff, some clothes she'd left, a few books, and I donated them. I cleared out the second bedroom, which had been a storage room for junk. I painted the walls a soft yellow. I couldn't afford a crib yet, so I kept using the pack and play, but I made the room hers. I taped pictures of animals on the walls. I bought a nightlight that projected stars onto the ceiling. I changed my schedule at work. I requested the weekend shifts so I could be home more during the week. I learned how to cook cheap, healthy meals, rice and beans, homemade vegetable soup. I started talking to her. Not just shushing her, but really talking. "We're going to the store now, Lily," I'd say as I buckled her in. "Look at the sky. It's blue today. Do you like the green beans?"
No?
"Okay, we'll try squash." We became a unit. The two Quinn girls, the lady in apartment 4B called us. I didn't hear from my parents. Thanksgiving came and went. Christmas came and went. I sent them a card with a picture of Lily. They never responded. I found out later from a cousin that my mother had told the extended family that I had run off to find myself and was babysitting for a friend. She was too ashamed to admit her daughter was raising an illegitimate child alone. It hurt. Of course it hurt. But it hurt less every day. Because every day Lily did something new. She smiled. She rolled over. She laughed. A bubbling, belly laugh that made the cramped apartment feel like a palace. One evening, when she was about 10 months old, I was sitting on the floor folding laundry. Lily was pulling herself up on the coffee table. She was wobbly, her little legs shaking. She let go of the table. She stood there for 3 seconds, balancing. Then she looked at me. She grinned, showing her 2 bottom teeth.
"Mama," she said.
It was clear as a bell.
"Mama."
I dropped the towel I was holding. Technically, I was her aunt. Technically, her mother was a woman named Elena, who is God knows where. But biology doesn't make a mother. Showing up makes a mother. Cleaning the vomit makes a mother. Staying when you want to run makes a mother. I crawled over to her and scooped her up. She buried her face in my neck. "Yes," I told her, kissing her soft cheek.
"Yes."
And Mama, the hard beginning was over. We had survived the storm. We had built a life out of the wreckage. I didn't know what the future held, but as I held my daughter, I knew we could face anything. Or so I thought. I didn't know that the silence from my family was just the calm before a much worse storm. I didn't know that 10 years of peace were about to be shattered by a single phone call. A decade is a long time. When you are living it day by day, it feels slow. It feels like an endless loop of packing lunches, washing uniforms, and checking homework. But when you look back, it goes by in a blink. 10 years passed. The tiny apartment that once felt like a prison became our sanctuary. It wasn't fancy. The carpet was worn down in the hallway, and the faucet in the kitchen dripped no matter how many times the landlord fixed it. But it was home. It was filled with us. The walls were covered in Lily's art. From her first scribbles that looked like angry tornadoes to her detailed watercolor paintings of birds. The fridge was a gallery of spelling tests with A+, written in red ink. The windowsill was crowded with plants we had grown from seeds. Lily grew up. She wasn't just a baby anymore. She was a person. She was 10 years old. She was tall for her age, with knobby knees and long dark hair that she refused to brush. She was kind. That was the thing that amazed me the most. After everything, after being abandoned, after having no father, after having grandparents who pretended she didn't exist, she was so incredibly kind. She was the kid who shared her snack. She was the kid who brought stray cats home. Our life was simple. I was still a nurse, though I had moved up to a shift supervisor position. It paid a little better, which meant we could afford pizza on Friday nights and a movie ticket once a month. We had a routine. Every morning, I braided her hair while she ate oatmeal. Every afternoon, she sat at the kitchen table doing math while I started dinner. The neighbors knew us well. Mrs. Gable in 4B called us the Quinn girls. "You two are like 2 peas in a pod," she would say when she saw us walking to the bus stop, holding hands. And we were a team. We didn't talk much about real parents. Lily knew the truth, mostly. I never lied to her. I told her that her mother was sick and couldn't take care of her, and that I was the lucky one who got to keep her. She called me Mom. She had started doing it that day when she was a baby, and she never stopped. To her, I was Mom. The woman who birthed her was just a shadow, a character in a story she didn't like to read. It wasn't always perfect. There were moments of sadness. Father's Day was always hard. School projects about family trees were awkward. I remember when she was 7, she asked me, "Why don't Grandma and Grandpa visit us?" I froze. My parents lived 30 minutes away. I knew they were still there. I saw my mother's Facebook posts sometimes, pictures of her garden, pictures of my cousin's kids. They looked like happy, normal grandparents, just not to us.
I
Sat Lily down. "They are complicated people, honey. They have a hard time showing love." "Do they hate me?" she asked. "No," I said fiercely, grabbing her shoulders. "It is impossible to hate you. They're just missing out. It is their loss, not ours. We found peace in our little bubble. I thought we were safe. I thought the hard part was over. I thought the silence from my family meant they had moved on and forgotten us. I was wrong. It happened on a Tuesday morning in October. The air was crisp. I was making coffee, and Lily was searching for her other sneaker. My phone rang on the counter. I didn't recognize the number. It was a local area code. I assumed it was the school, or maybe a telemarketer. "Hello," I said, cradling the phone between my ear and shoulder while I poured milk.
Harper.
I dropped the milk. The carton hit the floor, splashing white liquid over my socks. I knew that voice. It was deeper than I remembered, smoother, but I knew it. It was the voice that had screamed at me over borrowed clothes. It was the voice that had whispered secrets in the dark when we were kids. It was Elena. My heart stopped. I couldn't breathe. I looked at Lily, who was tying her shoe by the door. She looked up, sensing my fear. "Who is this?" I asked, though I knew. "It's me. It's Elena." She sounded calm.
Too calm.
The Elena I remembered was frantic. She spoke in rapid-fire bursts, usually asking for money or blaming someone for her problems. This voice was steady. It was polished. "What do you want?" I asked. My voice was low, dangerous. I turned my back to Lily. "I'm back in town, Harper," she said. "I've been back for a few months. I'm clean. I've been sober for 3 years."
Good for you, I said.
"Goodbye." "Wait," she said quickly. "Please. Don't hang up. I'm married now. I have a life. I want to see her." The words hit me like a physical blow. I want to see her. For 10 years, she hadn't sent a card. She hadn't sent $1. She hadn't called on a birthday. And now, on a random Tuesday, she wanted to pop in? "No," I said. "Harper, she's my daughter. She is a stranger to you," I hissed. "You left her on a doormat in the rain. You don't get to walk back in just because you cleaned up your act." "I have rights," Elena said. Her voice hardened slightly. The polish cracked, revealing the selfishness underneath. "I've changed. Mom and Dad said." I froze. "You talk to Mom and Dad?" "We talk all the time," she said casually. "They're so happy I'm home. They want to see Lily too. We all do. We want to be a family again." The room spun. My parents. My parents who told me Lily was a burden. My parents who ignored us for a decade. They were talking to Elena? They were welcoming her back. It was a conspiracy of silence. They had rebuilt their family without me, and now they wanted to take the one thing I had. "Lily is happy," I said. "Leave us alone." "I can't do that," Elena said. "I'm her mother. I'm going to see her, Harper. We can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. But I am going to see my child." The line went dead. I stood there, gripping the counter, shaking. "Mom." Lily's voice was small. "Are you okay?" "Who was that?" I turned around. I forced a smile onto my face. It felt like a mask made of clay. "Wrong number, sweetie." I lied. "Just a wrong number."
Come on.
"You're going to be late for school." I drove her to school, but my hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. The bubble had popped. The peace was gone. The ghosts were back, and they weren't haunting us anymore. They were hunting us. I tried to ignore it. I tried to pretend the call didn't happen. But 3 days later, a letter arrived. It wasn't a legal notice, not yet. It was a letter from a mediator. Request for visitation. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at it. If I refused, they would take me to court immediately. I didn't have the money for a long legal battle. I needed to play this smart. I agreed to one meeting, 1 hour, supervised, in a public place. I chose the Children's Museum downtown. It was loud, crowded, and safe. There were cameras everywhere. I told Lily the truth, or a version of it. "Lily," I said the night before, "do you remember how I told you your biological mother was sick?" She nodded, looking up from her book. "Well, she is better now, and she wants to say hello. Would you be okay with that?" Lily shrugged. She didn't look excited. She looked wary. "Will you be there?" "I will be right next to you the whole time," I promise. I won't let go of your hand. We arrived at the museum on a Saturday. My stomach was in knots. I felt like I was walking into a lion's den. Elena was waiting near the dinosaur exhibit. I almost didn't recognize her. The sister I remembered was gaunt, with messy hair and clothes that didn't fit. This woman looked expensive. She was wearing a beige cashmere coat. Her hair was cut in a sleek, shiny bob. She had diamond earrings. She looked like a woman who lunched at country clubs. Standing next to her was a man. He was tall, wearing a suit jacket with jeans, the cool, rich guy look. He had a winning smile that didn't reach his eyes. Elena saw us. Her hand flew to her mouth.
She started to cry.
"Oh my God," she sobbed. "Look at her. Look at how big she is." She rushed forward. Lily took a step back, hiding behind my leg. I put my hand out. "Stop," I said firmly. "Give her space." Elena stopped. She wiped her eyes delicately. "I'm sorry. I'm just so overwhelmed." "Hi, Lily." I'm your mother." Lily peeked out from behind me. She looked at Elena with total confusion.
"Hi," Lily said.
Then she looked up at me. "Can we go see the T-Rex now, Mom?" Elena flinched. The word mom hit her like a slap. "I'm Grant," the man said, stepping forward. He extended a hand to me. His grip was firm, too firm. "I'm Elena's husband. It's so good to finally meet you, Harper. We've heard so much about you." "I haven't heard anything about you," I said coldly. "We just got married 6 months ago," he said, smiling. "We're really excited to build a relationship with Lily." The hour was excruciating. Elena tried to ask Lily questions, but she didn't know how to talk to a 10-year-old. She asked babyish questions. "Do you like dolls? Do you like pink?" Lily, who loved soccer and science fiction, just answered politely.
"No."
"I like space." Elena looked at Grant, confused. They didn't know her. They didn't know anything about her. When the hour was up, I grabbed Lily's hand. "We have to go," I said. "Wait," Elena said. "When can we see her again? Next weekend?" "We'll see," I said. I rushed Lily to the car. I felt like I had just escaped a kidnapping, but they didn't stop. 2 weeks later, on a Sunday afternoon, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door, and there they were, Elena and Grant, standing on my porch. My porch, where Elena had dumped Lily 10 years ago. "What are you doing here?" I blocked the doorway with my body. "We need to talk, Harper," Grant said. His voice wasn't friendly anymore. It was businesslike. "May we come in?" "No," I said. "Say what you have to say." Elena looked at me. Her eyes were hard. "We want her, Harper." "Excuse me?" "We want custody," Grant said. He crossed his arms. "Look, we appreciate what you've done. You were a great babysitter. But Elena is her mother. We have a beautiful home in the suburbs. We have money. We can give her a private school education. We can give her a stable, 2-parent home." I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Stable? You abandoned her. I raised her. I am her mother. Biologically, you are her aunt," Grant corrected. "And legally, without a formal adoption decree, which we know you never filed because you couldn't afford the fees, you are on shaky ground." My blood ran cold. He had done his research. He knew I hadn't formally adopted her. I had legal guardianship, but I had never finalized the adoption because lawyers cost thousands of dollars I didn't have. "We want her to come home," Elena said softly. "It's time she came home to her real family. This is her home." I shouted. "Look at this place." I gestured to the hallway behind me. Lily's muddy soccer cleats were by the door. Her backpack was on the hook. The smell of cookies baking was in the air. "It's cute," Grant said, looking over my shoulder with a sneer. "But it's small. And let's be honest, Harper. You're single. You're working shift work. You're struggling. We can give her the world." "You can't buy her," I said. "We don't want to buy her," Elena said. "We just want what's best for her." Mom and Dad agree. There it was again. Mom and Dad. "Mom and Dad are helping you?" I asked. "They signed affidavits," Elena said. She pulled a folder from her designer bag. "They say you've alienated them. They say you refuse to let them see their granddaughter. They say you're unstable and bitter." I stared at the folder. The betrayal was so deep it felt like my chest was cracking open. My parents, who told me to handle it, were now telling a court that I was the villain. They were rewriting history to help the daughter they actually liked. "Get off my porch," I whispered. "We're filing the petition tomorrow," Grant said. "We just wanted to give you a chance to surrender her voluntarily. It would be easier for Lily if we didn't have to drag this through court." "Surrender her?" I stepped forward, my face inches from his. I would die before I hand her over to you. Get out. I slammed the door in their faces. I locked it. I put the deadbolt on. I leaned against the door, trembling. I could hear their footsteps walking away. I could hear Grant's car engine start. I looked down the hallway. Lily was in her room. I could hear her humming to herself. She was safe for now. But the war had started. They had money. They had my parents. They had a fancy lawyer. All I had was the truth. And looking around my small apartment, I was terrified that the truth wouldn't be enough. I needed help. I needed a fighter. I grabbed the phone book. Yes, I still had one. And I started looking for the name of the woman my coworker had recommended. A lawyer who hated bullies. Julia Hernandez. I dialed the number. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. I need to hire you, I said when the receptionist answered. My sister is trying to steal my daughter, and I will burn the world down before I let her take her. 3 weeks passed. It was the longest 3 weeks of my life. Every time a car drove down our street, I jumped. Every time the phone rang, my stomach dropped. I was living in a state of constant, low-grade nausea. Then it happened. It was a Tuesday evening. I was helping Lily with a geography project. We were gluing cotton balls onto a piece of blue poster board to make clouds. The doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. It wasn't Elena or Grant. It was a stranger. A middle-aged man in a windbreaker, holding a thick manila envelope. I opened the door. Harper Quinn, he asked. Yes. You've been served. He handed me the envelope and walked away. He didn't look me in the eye. To him, it was just a job. To me, it was a bomb. I closed the door and locked it. My hands were trembling so bad, I almost dropped the papers. Who was that, Mom? Lily asked from the kitchen table. Just some paperwork for the house. I lied. My voice sounded thin. Keep gluing, honey. I'll be right back. I went into my bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. I opened the envelope. Petition for custody. Petitioners, Elena Dalton and Grant Dalton. Respondent, Harper Quinn. I started reading. The legal language was cold and formal, but the lies were personal. They were vicious. Paragraph 4 stated that I was unstable and financially insecure. Paragraph 7 claimed I had willfully alienated the child from her biological mother. But the worst part was the attached affidavits. These were sworn statements signed by witnesses. I turned the page and saw my mother's signature, Janet Quinn. I read her statement, and I felt like someone was carving my heart out with a dull spoon. My daughter Harper has always been difficult, my mother wrote. She has refused to let us see our granddaughter for 10 years. We have sent gifts that were returned. We have called, and she hangs up. We have been heartbroken. We believe Lily belongs with her mother, Elena, who has recovered and is ready to be a parent. I gasped for air. Returned gifts? They never sent a single card. Refused calls? The only time I called them was when Lily was a baby, and they told me to stop bothering them. I turned the page. My father's statement was shorter, but just as cruel. Harper is resentful of her sister's success. She is using the child as a weapon to punish the family. I dropped the papers on the floor. Resentful? I was the one who scraped coins together to buy formula while Elena was out partying. I was the one who held Lily when she had the flu. I was the one who taught her to tie her shoes, to read, to ride a bike. Success? Elena had success because she married a rich man. I had success because I kept a human being alive against all odds. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to my parents' house and throw the papers in their faces. I wanted to shake them and ask, why? Why do you hate me this much? But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. The tears wouldn't come. Instead, a cold, hard stone formed in my stomach. They wanted a fight? Fine. I would give them a war. I picked up the papers. I walked out to the kitchen. Mom. Lily held up a cotton ball. Is this enough clouds? I looked at her. My beautiful, innocent girl. She didn't know that her grandparents, people she barely knew existed, were trying to rip her away from the only home she had ever known. It's perfect, baby, I said. It's absolutely perfect. The next morning, I took a sick day. I put on my best blazer, the one I wore for interviews. I drove downtown to a small brick building near the courthouse. I walked into the office of Julia Hernandez. The office wasn't fancy. There was no marble floor or waterfall in the lobby like at Grant's law firm. The carpet was beige, and the waiting room chairs were old. But the receptionist was kind, and the coffee was hot. Julia came out to get me herself. She was a small woman, maybe 50 years old, with sharp, intelligent eyes and graying hair pulled back in a bun. She shook my hand, and her grip was strong. We sat in her office. I put the envelope on her desk. "Tell me," she said. I told her everything. I didn't use fancy words. I just told her the truth. I told her about the rain. I told her about the Burton phone call. I told her about the 10 years of silence. I told her about the sudden reappearance of Elena in her cashmere coat. Julia listened. She didn't interrupt. She took notes on a yellow legal pad. Her face was unreadable. When I finished, I pushed the envelope toward her. "Read the affidavits." My parents, they lied. They lied about everything. Julia put on her reading glasses. The room was silent, except for the sound of pages turning. She read for 5 minutes. Then she took off her glasses and looked at me. "Harper," she said softly, "you need to prepare yourself. This is going to be ugly." "I know," I said. "They have money. They have a fancy lawyer. I have nothing." "You have the truth," Julia said. "And in family court, the truth matters. But we have to prove it." She tapped the file with her pen. "There is something wrong here," she said. "What do you mean?" "I've been doing family law for 25 years, Julia said. Reunification cases usually start slow. The biological parent asks for visits, then weekends. Then, maybe a year later, they ask for custody. Elena is asking for full custody immediately. She wants to uproot a 10-year-old child from the only primary caregiver she's ever known." Julia narrowed her eyes. "And the grandparents? Why lie so boldly? Why risk perjury? If we prove they never sent gifts, they look like liars to the judge. It's a high-risk strategy." "They just hate me," I said. "They always liked Elena better." "Maybe," Julia said. "But hate usually isn't enough to spend $50,000 on legal fees. And Grant Dalton, why is a new stepfather so eager to take on a 10-year-old child he's met once?" She leaned forward. "This isn't just about a reunion, Harper. This feels like strategy. And when people move this fast and lie this big, it's usually for one of two reasons, ego or money." "Elena doesn't need money," I said. "Grant is rich." "Is he?" Julia asked. "Rich people don't usually try to steal children. They usually try to avoid paying child support. This is backwards." She picked up her phone. "I'm going to take your case," she said. "And I'm going to hire a private investigator. His name is Mark Harris. He's expensive, but he's the best. If there is a skeleton in Grant Dalton's closet, Mark will find it." "I can't afford expensive," I said, my voice shaking. "We'll work out a payment plan," Julia said firmly. "Because if we don't fight this, you will lose her. And I don't think you walked into my office to lose." "No," I said. "I didn't." "Good. Go home. Hug your daughter. Don't talk to your parents. Don't answer Elena's calls. Direct everything to me." I walked out of her office feeling a tiny spark of hope. I wasn't alone anymore. I had a champion. The next 2 weeks were a blur of anxiety. I went to work, I came home, I pretended everything was normal for Lily. But inside, I was screaming. My parents kept calling. I let it go to voicemail. They left messages that swung between sweet and threatening. "Harper, pick up. We just want to talk. Harper, you're being selfish. Think of Lily. Harper, we'll see you in court." I saved every message. Julia told me to. "Evidence," she said. On a Thursday afternoon, Julia called me to her office. "Mark found something," she said. Her voice was serious. "You need to come in. Now." I left work early. My heart was pounding in my throat the whole drive. When I got to the office, there was a man sitting in the chair next to mine. He was wearing a rumpled suit and looked tired. "This is Mark Harris," Julia said. Mark nodded. He didn't smile. He opened a folder on his lap. "I did a deep dive on Grant Dalton," Mark said. His voice was gravelly. "On the surface, he looks great. Real estate developer. Nice house. Country club membership. But," I asked. "But it's a house of cards," Mark said. "He is leveraged to the hilt. He owes $4 million to 3 different banks. His last 2 development projects failed. He's being sued by 2 contractors for non-payment." I blinked. "He's broke." "Worse than broke," Mark said. "He's desperate. He's drowning. He has maybe 2 months before he files for bankruptcy." "Okay," I said, trying to process this. "So, why does he want Lily?" "A kid is an expense. A kid costs money. Why take on a dependent when you can't pay your bills?" Julia looked at me. Her expression was soft, sad. "Mark found something else," she said. Do you know who Lily's biological father is? I shook my head. Elena never told me. She said it was a random guy from a party. It wasn't random, Mark said. We found an old police report from 11 years ago. A domestic disturbance. Elena and a man named Christopher Vance. The name meant nothing to me. Christopher Vance died 6 months ago, Mark said. Motorcycle accident. Okay, I said slowly. Christopher Vance came from a very wealthy family in Connecticut, Mark continued. Old money. Oil money. He pulled a document out of the folder. It was a copy of a will. Before he died, his parents set up a trust fund for his issue, his offspring. They didn't know if he had any kids, but they set aside a portion of the estate just in case. Mark pointed to a number on the page. $5 million, he said. Held in. Trust for any proven biological child of Christopher Vance. Accessible by the legal guardian until the child turns 25. The room went silent. The air left my lungs. $5 million, I whispered. Grant isn't looking for a daughter, Julia said, her voice hard as steel. He's looking for a payday. He needs access to that trust to pay off his debts. And Elena? I asked. Does she know? We found emails, Mark said, between Grant and your parents. My head snapped up. My parents. Your parents knew, Mark said. Your father sent Grant the link to the obituary for Christopher Vance. Your mother sent Elena a text message 3 months ago that said, Don't worry, we will get the girl. Just stick to the script. The money will fix everything. I felt like I was going to vomit. I stood up. I had to walk around the small office. It wasn't just neglect. It wasn't just that they didn't love me. It was a heist. They were conspiring to sell my daughter, my Lily, to save Elena's husband from bankruptcy. My parents were willing to rip Lily away from the only mother she knew, traumatize her, and hand her over to strangers, all for a cut of the money. They are monsters, I said. My voice broke. They are actual monsters. Yes, Julia said. They are. But now we have them. She stood up and put a hand on my shoulder. This changes everything, Harper. This isn't a custody battle anymore. This is fraud. And we're going to bury them with it. How? I asked. Can we use this? Is it legal? Mark got the emails legally through a subpoena on Grant's business partners, Julia said. And the financial records are public, if you know where to look. We have the motive. We have the proof. Do they know we know? I asked. No, Mark said. They think you're just a broke nurse with a public defender. They think they're going to walk into court, cry a few tears, lie about you, and walk out with the kid and the check. I thought about the affidavit. She's your burden now. They thought I was weak. They thought I was the doormat they left on the porch 10 years ago. I wiped my face. I stopped shaking. The sadness evaporated, and in its place was a cold, focused rage. I want to destroy them, I said. I don't just want to win. I want everyone to know what they did. Julia smiled. It was a shark smile. Then let's get ready for court, she said. Because next week, we aren't just going to defend you. We're going to put them on trial. I drove home that night with the file on the passenger seat. I looked at the dark houses passing by. I thought about Lily sleeping in her bed. I thought about her laugh. I thought about the way she held my hand. They wanted to turn her into a paycheck. I gripped the steering wheel. Over my dead body. I wasn't just fighting for custody anymore. I was fighting for her humanity. And I had the one thing they didn't count on. I had the truth. And it was time to unseal it. The courtroom felt colder than I expected. It smelled like floor wax and old paper. The lights buzzed overhead, a low, irritating hum that made my headache worse. I sat at the wooden table next to Julia. My hands were in my lap, clenching and unclenching. I looked across the aisle. They were all there. The opposing team. Elena sat next to Grant. She was wearing a navy blue dress that looked modest and expensive. She had a tissue in her hand, twisting it nervously. Grant looked confident. He was whispering something to their lawyer, a slick man with a shiny suit. Behind them, in the gallery, sat my parents, Janet and Thomas Quinn. My mother was wearing her church pearls. My father was looking at the ceiling, refusing to make eye contact with me. When I looked at them, I didn't see my parents. I saw strangers. I saw people who had plotted to sell my daughter. All rise, the bailiff called out. Judge Evelyn Harriman walked in. She was an older woman with short gray hair and glasses perched on the end of her nose. She looked tired but sharp. She didn't look like someone who tolerated nonsense. The hearing began. Elena's lawyer stood up first. He walked around the room, using big words about reunification and biological imperatives. Then he called Elena to the stand. Elena was an actress. I had forgotten how good she was at playing the victim. She sat in the witness chair, dabbed her eyes, and told a story that was 90% lies. I was sick, she said, her voice trembling. I was young and addicted, and I made a terrible mistake leaving Lily. But I have worked so hard to get better. I went to rehab. I built a life. I just want my baby back. And how has your sister, the respondent, reacted to your attempts to reconnect? Her lawyer asked. Elena looked at me. Her eyes were sad, but there was a flicker of malice behind them. She blocked me, Elena whispered. She shut me out. She wouldn't let me see Lily. She wants to punish me for my past. I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood. Liar. Next came my parents. My mother took the stand. She swore to tell the truth. Then she looked right at the judge and lied. We tried to help Harper, my mother said. We offered to babysit. We sent checks. But Harper was always possessive. She told us to stay away. She said Lily was hers, and we weren't allowed to be part of her life. Julia squeezed my arm under the table. Breathe, she whispered. I felt like screaming. I remembered the phone call. She's your burden now. I remember the empty Christmas stockings. I remembered the silence. Finally, it was Grant's turn. He was smooth. He talked about his job as a developer. He talked about the beautiful 4-bedroom house they lived in. We just want to give Lily a stable future, Grant said, smiling at the judge. A 2-parent home, private school, opportunities that, frankly, Ms. Quinn cannot provide on her single income. He made me sound like a failure. He made me sound like I was holding Lily back by loving her. Then it was my turn. I walked to the stand. I felt exposed. I sat down and looked at the judge. Ms. Quinn, my lawyer, Julia said. Tell us about the night Lily came to you. I took a deep breath. I decided to strip away the anger and just tell the facts. It was raining, I said. My voice was steady. There was a storm. I opened the door and found a car seat on the mat. There was a note. It said, "Take care of her." Did you call your parents? Julia asked. Yes. And what did they say? I looked directly at my mother in the gallery. She shifted in her seat. My mother sighed. I said clearly. And she said, "She is your burden now. Handle it." The courtroom was quiet. Did they offer help? No. Did they send money? No. Did they ever visit? No, Miss Quinn, Julia asked, her voice soft. Why didn't you let them visit recently? Because they are strangers to her, I said. Lily is 10. She doesn't know them. And I didn't want to expose her to people who considered her a burden until it became convenient for them to love her. Elena's lawyer tried to cross-examine me. He tried to make me look bitter. He asked if I was jealous of Elena's wealth. I don't care about her money, I said. I care about my daughter's heart. I stepped down. I felt drained. The judge looked at the clock. Closing arguments, she asked. Elena's lawyer gave a long speech about how biology matters most. Then Julia stood up. She didn't give a speech. She picked up a thick, sealed folder from her desk. Your Honor, Julia said. Before I make my closing argument, I would like to submit new evidence. Evidence that speaks to the true motivation behind this sudden desire for reunification. Grant's lawyer stood up. Objection. We haven't seen this. It was discovered yesterday, Julia said calmly, and it is directly relevant to the welfare of the child. The judge nodded. Approach. Julia walked up to the bench. She handed the folder to the judge. She handed a copy to Elena's lawyer. The room went silent. I watched the judge's face. She opened the folder. She started to read. At first, her face was neutral. Then, her eyebrows furrowed. She turned a page. Then another. Her expression shifted from boredom to confusion, and finally, to cold, hard anger. She looked up. Her eyes locked onto Grant Dalton. It was the look of a woman who had seen everything, but was still disgusted by this. Mr. Dalton, the judge said. Her voice was quiet, but it echoed in the room. Please take the stand again. Grant looked confused. He stood up and walked to the chair. He looked a little less confident now. Remind me, the judge said, looking at a paper in the folder. What is your current net worth? Grant blinked. Well, assets and liabilities are complex, Your Honor. Are you currently $4 million in debt? The judge asked. Grant's face went pale. I have some leverage, yes. And are you aware? The judge continued, picking up another paper. of the trust fund established for the biological issue of the late Mr. Christopher Vance. Elena gasped. It was a loud, sharp sound. She looked at Grant. Grant looked like he was going to throw up.
I've
heard of it, Grant stammered. You've heard of it? The judge held up an email printout. This is an email from you to your bank manager, dated 2 months ago. It says, hold off on the foreclosure. My wife is retrieving her daughter. There is a $5 million trust we can access once custody is transferred. The courtroom erupted.
People gasped.
My mother put a hand over her mouth. Order. The judge banged her gavel. Order. She turned her gaze to Elena. Did you know? The judge asked. Elena was shaking. Grant told me. He said we needed the money for the house. He said it was all right. So this wasn't about love, the judge said. This was a bank robbery. Then, the judge turned to the gallery. She looked at my parents. And you, she said. Janet and Thomas Quinn. My parents froze. I have text messages here, the judge said, shaking the papers. Texts where you advise your daughter on how to lie to this court. Texts where you discuss your cut of the money for helping them. My father hung his head. My mother started to cry, but nobody cared anymore. I sat there, frozen. It was out. The poison was out. Julia sat down next to me and patted my hand. It's over, she whispered. The silence that followed was heavy. It was the silence of total defeat for them and total vindication for me. The judge took off her glasses. She rubbed the bridge of her nose. She looked exhausted, like she had lost a little faith in humanity. She looked at me. Her expression softened. Ms. Quinn, she said, I owe you an apology. Not from the court, but from the system that allowed these people to drag you here. I nodded. I couldn't speak. There was a lump in my throat the size of a golf ball. The evidence presented by your counsel is irrefutable, the judge said. This petition for custody is not only denied, it is dismissed with prejudice. That means they can never file it again. She turned to Grant and Elena. Mr. and Mrs. Dalton, I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for investigation into fraud and perjury. You came into my courtroom and lied under oath to facilitate the theft of a minor child's inheritance. Grant put his head in his hands. Elena was sobbing loudly now, ugly, gasping sobs. And as for the grandparents, the judge said, her voice dripping with disdain, you are dismissed. You have no rights to this child. You forfeited those rights 10 years ago on a rainy porch. She picked up her pen and signed the order. I am granting full, permanent legal and physical custody to Harper Quinn. I am also signing an order formally adopting the child to Ms. Quinn, waiving all fees. You are her mother, Ms. Quinn. In every way that matters. She banged the gavel. Adjourned. The sound of the gavel was the best sound I had ever heard. It sounded like freedom. I stood up. My legs were shaky. Julia hugged me. It was a fierce, professional hug. We did it, she said. I looked over my shoulder. Elena was arguing with Grant. She was shoving his chest. You said it would be easy, she screamed. You said nobody would know. My parents were trying to sneak out the back door, heads down, avoiding everyone's eyes. They looked small. They looked pathetic. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt light. The burden was gone. I walked out of the courtroom. The air in the hallway was cool. I pulled out my phone. I had a text from my neighbor, Mrs. Gable, who was watching Lily. She's fine. We're making cookies. How is it going? I typed back with trembling fingers. It's over. We won. I'm coming home. I walked out of the building and into the sunshine. It wasn't raining today. The sky was a brilliant, piercing blue. I got into my old car. I drove home. I didn't speed. I didn't rush. I drove with the windows down, letting the wind blow my hair back. I thought about the last 10 years. The sleepless nights. The worry about money. The fear that I wasn't doing a good job. I realized then that I hadn't just been raising Lily. I had been raising myself, too. I had started as a scared girl who couldn't say no to her mother. I was ending as a woman who had taken down a room full of liars to protect her child. I pulled into the driveway. The front door opened before I could even get out of the car. Lily ran out. She was wearing her favorite t-shirt and jeans covered in flour. Mom, she yelled. She ran down the sidewalk. I caught her in my arms. I lifted her up, spinning her around, burying my face in her hair. Hi, baby, I whispered. Hi. Did everything go okay? She asked, pulling back to look at my face. Did you fix the paperwork? Yes, I said. I fixed it. Nobody is going to bother us ever again. She smiled. Good. Because the cookies are burning. We laughed. We walked inside together, and I locked the door behind us. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to keep the happiness in. 2 months later. The summer evening was warm. The windows were open, letting in the sound of crickets and the distant hum of traffic. Our apartment was quiet. The good kind of quiet. Grant Dalton had filed for bankruptcy. The local news had run a small story about a developer fraud scheme. He and Elena were getting divorced. I heard through the grapevine that Elena had moved to another state to live with a friend. She sent one letter to the house. It just said, "I'm sorry." I threw it in the trash. I didn't need her apology. I had her daughter, and that was enough. My parents had tried to call once, a week after the trial. I had changed my number. Julia had sent them a cease and desist letter. If they wanted to see Lily, they would have to go through a lawyer and a therapist. They never replied. They didn't want to do the work. They never did. But we were okay. I was sitting on the couch, reading a book. Lily was on the floor, painting. She was working on a large canvas I had bought her for her 11th birthday. She was painting a storm. Dark gray clouds, streaks of lightning. But in the middle of the storm, there was a small, bright yellow house. And inside the windows of the house, there was a light. "It's us," she said, pointing to the house. "It's beautiful," I said. She put down her brush. She looked at me. Her eyes were serious. "Mom?" "Yeah, honey?" "Are we really safe now?" she asked. "Like forever?" I put my book down. I motioned for her to come sit with me. She climbed onto the couch and curled up next to me, resting her head on my shoulder. She was getting tall, her legs lanky, but she still fit. "We are safe," I told her. "The judge signed a paper that says you are mine. Nobody can take you. Not Elena. Not Grant. Not my parents. You are a Quinn, but you are my Quinn." "I'm glad," she whispered. I didn't like them. They smiled too much with their mouths, but not their eyes. "You're smart," I said, kissing the top of her head. "Mom?" "Yeah." "I know you're not my tummy mommy," she said. It was the term we used when she was little. "I know Elena is." "That's right. But that doesn't matter," she said firmly. "Because you're the one who made the macaroni. And you're the one who chased away the monsters. So you're the real mom." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you, Lily." "We're a weird family," she said, giggling. "Just two of us." "Families aren't about how many people are at the dinner table," I said. "Families are about who stays when it rains." She nodded. She understood. "We're better than okay," I said, repeating the promise I made to myself years ago. "We're invincible." She fell asleep on my shoulder 10 minutes later. I sat there for a long time listening to her breathe. I looked around our small, messy, wonderful living room. I didn't have a mansion. I didn't have a trust fund.
I didn't have parents who bragged about me.
But I had this. I had the weight of my daughter against my side. I had the peace of a clear conscience. I had the quiet power of knowing that I had walked through the fire and came out the other side holding the only thing that mattered. I closed my eyes and finally, after 10 years, I fully exhaled. The burden was gone. The gift remained. And we were home.